You've just landed on the Coolest People in the World podcast, a show that features stories of cool people doing really cool things. From business, art, and travel to lifestyle, mental health and family, and everything in between. Join host Krystle J Bailey as she introduces you to some of the coolest people in the world. Here's Krystle.
Welcome back to the Coolest People in the World. I'm your host, Krystle J Bailey, and I'm back. It's been a couple weeks. I took off. I called it the end of season 1. Whether you want to call it season 1 or season 2 is really up to you, but we're back. We're back. I have some new episodes up my sleeve. I have a couple new friends I want to bring to the table, and things are a little bit different. So if you listen to the first several episodes, it was very edited. A lot of my ums and buts and things like that are taken out. It seems a little bit more fast paced. That is because I had a podcast producer who whipped me into shape and got me on stage, and here we are. Now I have a show. I no longer have that podcast producer. That's cool. We're moving forward. I am, as I mentioned previously, or if you do follow me online in any capacity, I am now producing my own show. I am recording this from my bedroom, and I have a cup of Wawa coffee in my hand. I have my little Rode mics clipped to my hoodie. I have my notes in my lap, and I'm sitting cross-legged on the floor recording this episode because it is time to bring it back. I've been talking about it. I've been recording some other episodes, and I wasn't quite sure how to come back because I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to say. I have notes in 3 different places as far as what I think I wanted to say. I've been racking my brain about what I thought I wanted to say. I've been talking to my friends and family about what I wanted to say. And to be honest, I still don't know what I'm about to say next. And that's okay. That's okay, because if there's one thing that I did learn on this rapid speed little journey is that it doesn't always have to be perfect. It doesn't always have to be scripted or perfect. It's supposed to grow. It's supposed to evolve. To be honest, I didn't know what this show was going to be when I started it. I just saw an opportunity. Someone believed in me. I was introduced to someone who could help me out a little bit. And here we are. Here we are. And now there's a show, and it's called The Coolest People in the World. And I've been having so much fun inviting people to it. I think one of my favorite things about the show thus far has been asking my friends, people that I've met along the way, hey, do you want to be a part of my show? It's called The Coolest People in the World, and the way it makes people feel. And that's the one thing that I have loved about my journey as a writer, as someone who holds space for others and creates, whether I was creating challenge groups as a Beachbody coach or as a or networking groups as a business person in the world, or panel discussions in South Jersey, or as a journalist when I was writing. Well, I still am writing, but when I was writing for the publication that I was writing for the past 7 years, I really loved the opportunity to make people feel good, to make people feel seen, to tell someone's story, and to hold space for them, for their story to feel important to them, if for nobody else, for them. Because sometimes as a business owner, as a creator, you need that feeling. You need that feeling like somebody sees me, somebody gets this, somebody catches my vision, so that you can keep going. Because I've had people that were able to do that for me, and I've been blessed enough to be able to do that for other people. My writing and everything that I've done up until this point has been kind of a version of that. And in one of my episodes, I mentioned how as a middle school kid, I was a peer mediator. And to me, that was the first time I really learned how to hold space for people and to have conversations that matter and that heal and that move us forward. And so I think about that as I look forward to the future of this podcast and what it's supposed to be is, what do I like to do? That's the question I've been asking. Like, what do I want to be doing? I recently, as I was figuring this all out, I was saying, I'm going to have this and I'm going to have that, and I'm going to have 2 different Patreons, and I'm going to have et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Because I was eager to do it all, like I always am. And when I took these last few weeks off, I took a back seat and I looked at my life and I looked at what I want to do and I took the pressure off a little bit, which is hard for me to do because I put a lot of pressure on myself. Unfortunately, fortunately, I guess. I don't know. It depends on how you look at it. But when I asked myself what I really, really, really wanted to put out to the world, it was a couple, it's a couple basic things. And the first thing is just conversation, opportunity to have meaningful conversation. We all move around this life doing 100 million things. And sometimes the thing we love the most gets overlooked because the thing that pays our bills is leading the way, or we're not really sure how to tell the world what it is we love the most, or the things that we think about late at night go left unsaid because when we wake up in the morning, we have to go put on the masks and be what the world needs us to be and be the parents and the business people and the friends and the daughters and the sons that the world needs us to be. And the things that really matter, the things we really want to talk about, kind of get left unsaid. And so when I was thinking about what I want the show to look like and the people that I anticipate having on it, the people that I have had on it, many of which I'm gonna bring back because I was learning. Because I was learning is the full truth. I was learning in rapid speed and I was making it do what it needed to do. And I was at a time in my life where I needed a transition when I first was introduced to the show, and I got the transition. And now here we are, and now I have a better understanding of what I want this show to be. And so as I bring guests back on the show, I want people to feel safe and have a place to share those things that share those parts of themselves, whether it be their thoughts or their dreams or the real why behind what it is that they do. Whatever it is, I want to be able to provide a place for the coolest people in the world, the people who are breaking the records, the people who are making the changes, standing up for the things in their community that matter, creating the art that we love, making the food that nourishes us, whatever it is that the people, the guests do. I also want this table to be a place where they can talk about the other things. What else is it that makes you you? We know you are a great chef. We know you are a great artist. We know you're a great musician or farmer or actor or film producer. Whatever it is that you do, I want to know what else. For me, I'm a lot of things. I'm a lot of different things. First and foremost, I'm a mother. Everything that I do stems from me wanting to make my kids proud. Full transparency, I lost, as many of you know who do follow me, I lost two of my dads. I lost my dad at 21. He was 43 years old. And my stepdad, he was 55 years old. So I have found that I spend a lot of time thinking about time. I spend a lot of time thinking about legacy and what it is we leave behind and the impact that we make while we're here. How are we going to be remembered? I didn't get a whole lot. I don't have a whole lot to hold on to when it comes to my dad. My dad didn't live in the internet age. We were starting to, I think I just convinced him to get a Facebook when when Facebook was first opening to the world. But other than that, there's no digital record of the things my dad did or how he felt about life or what he thought about, when he wasn't. My dad drove a cab. He probably has a million stories that I've never heard or that really mattered to him that weren't recorded because we didn't record things then like we do now. And, being that we have this platform, all these platforms, we have the wonderful world of the internet and ways to document our lives in ways that we never did. Not just, I don't want to do this just for me in the sense that my kids, I hope to live to be 100, but when I'm gone, that my kids will understand what their mom was about and what their mom stood for. And what their mom stands for is authenticity, showing up in the world, even in the fakest parts of the world, showing up as your real self. Not doing what the Romans do just because you're in Rome, just going against the grain in the name of love, in the name of vulnerability and authenticity, because that is what creates reality. That is what creates togetherness. And I want to have those real conversations with other people who are working in a way, working towards what their own legacy looks like. And if this show can be a little teeny tiny piece of that, where they get to share a teeny tiny piece of what it is they represent or stand for, or maybe something they never talk about, or the heart of what it is that they do, so that one day their kids or grandkids or whomever may stumble across an archived podcast of their dad or their mom sharing why they do what they do, or sharing some story that matters to them that they get to hold on to. To me, that is what legacy means. Legacy isn't always millions of dollars or dozens and dozens of books or written by you, or franchises or empires or things like that. Sometimes, that's everybody's goal. Everybody's trying to build an empire in some way. Everybody's trying to live a good life and leave something behind in some way. But some people's lives are cut short, unfortunately. Some people don't ever make it to the place they think they're going to make it to. They end up going somewhere else. They end up taking a different path, because life is like that. So the coolest people in the world to me, and what I aspire for the archives of shows to be, is a place where people can come touch down and talk about the real things and talk about what it is that moves them, and maybe the hard things. Maybe we have some hard conversations, because those are important too. Some emotional conversations, because those are important too. I want to talk about the things that matter. And so the first several shows aim to do that in some capacity, and the next several shows will only continue to evolve that thought. I've been thinking about it and mulling it over in my mind for the past couple weeks, and what I was going to say when I came back. And I wrote a couple scripts and I wrote a couple notes and things like that. But every time I revisit what I think it's supposed to look like, that changes. So there's one piece of advice that I picked up along the way, and that was, let your show tell you what it needs to be. I heed that advice. And so I've been paying attention to the shows that were listened to the most. And I know y'all are nosy and y'all know about my life. Some of y'all, not everybody. There are parts of my life that are going to be left untold. I started to share in one episode that I actually unpublished the episode, because the people that needed to hear it heard it, and now it's time to move forward. But the people that have followed me for a long time, or speak to that particular group of people, I love y'all. I appreciate you guys so much. I have had a loyal, I hate to call it following or audience, but for the internet, that's what we call it. Group of amazing women who have followed and supported me, and men who have followed and supported my life's journey in different capacities, no matter what I've done, for years, for over a decade. I mean, some of you guys have been rocking with me for a long time, and I just so appreciate you. There are others who I met recently in this most recent kind of leg of the journey, and have found comfort in my words, or we've built a friendship, or you are someone who supports the career path, or whatever the case may be, someone that we just met in passing, and now you're listening to the show because I told you I have a show called The Coolest People in the World. Whoever you are, wherever you are, I appreciate you. I appreciate you listening. I understand that time is the most valuable resource. So for you to be spending your time here listening to what I have to say, I just want to make it meaningful. For the people who have been with me forever, I want to continue to give you what it is that supports your journey. And for the people who are new here, I want to give you something meaningful to listen to. When I started this podcast, I was feeling defeated. I was feeling defeated in my career, like I was spinning my wheels. I was a small fish in a big pond, really a small fish in a small pond, feeling like I was getting nowhere. And then, as life would have it, after I started the podcast, some things happened that I felt defeated again. And that's life. That is life in so many ways for so many of us. We get knocked down. We get knocked down and we get back up. And it happens as many times and as many times as we needed to get to where we're going. And so I'm in a season of getting back up again. I want to skip, I want to skip all the ick. I want to skip the ick. I like that. Skip the ick. We might go with that. I want to skip the ick because y'all have heard it from me at this point. If you're on my Facebook, if you're on my Instagram, if you've listened to the show where I talked about why I transitioned out of my multi-level marketing space when things got real icky, I'm just going to say it's a little like that. A little bit different, but a little like that. But I've had to transition at rapid speed because the show must go on. In the meantime, though, I did what I needed to do. And that's, I want to lean into the love. Oh, I like that. Skip the ick, lean into love. We're going to go with that. So, in leaning into the love, I began writing my next book. So, fast forward in between time, Skinny Jeans Dreams, boop, 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 a couple years later, wrote a book called Nourish, A Journey to Loving and Embracing the Woman Within. It is available on Amazon. Please look for the green cover. I did notice that some people have been buying the blue cover. And to be honest, since I'm a one-man show, if any of my friends who are Amazon experts want to help me, I have you on the show. I don't know. There's 2 listed and I don't have the time and patience to figure it out. There are 2 books listed. One is blue, one is green. The blue one is the original Nourish. Please look for the green cover, which I updated in the beginning of 2024 because I felt like some of the things in the book were very matter of fact. And when I wrote that book, I got overwhelmed by people reading it and how vulnerable it was. So there are limits to vulnerability. There are limits to transparency and what it does for you. That book is very vulnerable and transparent. By all means, please go read it now. But in the years that followed after I wrote it, I felt overwhelmed by that. And so I republished it with a new preface and a new about the author, kind of leaving things a little more open-ended for myself, which is how I think every day should be. Because we are constantly in a state of becoming. And I am constantly in a state of becoming. Every day I become a new person. And that's how it should be. I think that's what happens when you lean into the present moment and let it be what it's supposed to be for you. You're supposed to be becoming. I don't want to be stagnant. So Nourish is available wherever you get books. Look for the green cover. And as I was saying, in the meantime, while I was busy deciding what I want this show to be and where I want to go with my life, I started writing my next book, which I feel confident in saying will be called Nurture. So it will be Nourish and Nurture. And what I've come to understand is that Nourish was permission. Nourish was permission to what I call drop out of the race in life we never signed up for. It was permission to other women and it was permission to myself to do something differently and to kind of change the path according to our needs. And so what I'm understanding now is that nurture is what happens after. So nourish for me was permission to do something different, and nurture is what happens after I did. Now, the one thing that I am aiming to do differently is keep the vulnerability without making it so uncomfortably transparent that I don't want to talk about the book after. So that's the effort. That's the goal. The people who inspire me the most are very vulnerable and transparent. I mean, if I'm talking about the authors I love, Angela is one of my favorite. Read many of her memoirs. She's somebody that inspires my life and moves me. I'm sitting here actually recording this episode, looking at a Maya Angelou doll on top of a couple books that I have of hers. A doll, Barbie doll, I guess. It's not Barbie, but it looks like a Barbie doll, but it's a Maya Angelou doll that was gifted to me, and is a constant source of motivation and love in my life. And then Glennon Doyle. I have not read all Glennon Doyle's books. I am inspired by Glennon Doyle's life. Very much so. I read Untamed more than once. I know she has a podcast of her own, and in the few podcasts I've listened to, she is one of them. We Can Do Hard Things. But Glennon Doyle inspires me in so many ways. And if you don't know about Glennon Doyle, she was married. A lot of her books were about her marriage, reviving her marriage, her 3 kids. And then when she decided to live in her truth and she decided to move forward in the most vulnerable and authentic way she possibly could for herself, she ended up falling in love with her beautiful wife. And then they all live happily ever after, and they have this beautiful extended family. Long story short, this is my podcast. Go listen to Glennon's. But she inspires me because she had books out in the world that told her story in such a way that I imagine, if I had to guess, when she decided to write her the next leg of her story, the next piece of her journey in Untamed, on whatever she writes next, it is hard. It is hard to live a public life and tell your story as it evolves when it changes. When the things that you wrote about in one of your books, the way you feel about that thing has evolved, has changed. And much of that has happened for me since Nourish was released. My spiritual journey has evolved, my relationship has evolved, my relationship with my kids and my mother and everything has evolved. I lost another parent. My body has changed, my career has changed. Everything about my life since Nourish has evolved. And that's how it should be. If as long as I am here and alive and breathing, I want to be also evolving. So as I look forward to Nurture, I don't want to spoil anything just yet, but I will be sharing on the show the process of the writing, and I will be starting one exclusive content group. I know I made big promises that I have not fulfilled. They will be fulfilled. It'll just look a little bit different, but this is me honoring my personal evolution and my personal truth, and the fact that I and what I want evolves every day. But since everything stopped, I stopped hustling and grinding for the paper I was writing for. I stopped busting my back every week to put out a new show on here, and still grinding and hustling and sports and this and parenting life. The one conclusion that I did come to was that I need simplicity. I need simplicity in the most desperate of ways. But I want to continue to do what I do. So there will be exclusive content. There will be opportunities to connect. Yes. But what I really came here to do is start a podcast, start a show. So it's not going to be anything more than it needs to be. And as it evolves, it will. That's the permission I need to give myself. I'm not making big promises. I'm not over promising what I'm going to under deliver on, because I need simplicity. I need to write this book. I also have been constantly encouraged by people close to me to release a poetry book. Poetry is something I really haven't shared. Maybe I'll end this episode with a poem. We'll see. My friends are encouraging me to write a poetry book because they've heard my poetry. So that needs to happen. Nurture needs to happen. In the meantime, I want to produce quality shows. If I'm spread too thin trying to do the video and trying to keep up on YouTube and trying to make things all glittery and fancy, when it comes to me, things end up not getting done. So I'm going to do what I can, and I'm going to produce a show, and it's going to be wonderful, and you're going to meet some amazing guests, and you're going to hear about their lives and why they do what they do and how they can move and inspire you and encourage you and teach you. And I hope you find inspiration in it. For right now, we're going to rock with the audio podcast. That's all you really need. If you want to check out my YouTube, all that will be bonus content, and just look out for what's next. I'm not going to keep making promises about things because they're all big ideas and I only have one brain and two hands. So as they come, look for them. Stay up to date, stay leaned in, sign up for my newsletter, follow me on social media. There's a million things happening at any given time. But as we move forward, I do want to share more of the good stuff, the juicy stuff, the real conversations. So definitely be sure you listen to those first several episodes. There are some that get a little emotional. There are some that touch on the real stuff. There are some that are a little fast paced, but they're all amazing people that I've met on my journey. Amazing people moving in their respective worlds and doing what they were called to do. And so that is what this show is for. Highlighting the people who are making the magic in their world. And hopefully this show can serve as a bridge between worlds. There are people on here who are military veterans doing things to change the future for female veterans. Check out Jennifer. She's incredible. You'll be hearing from Kevin, who is also a veteran, but also an expert in plant medicine, studying plant medicine, which is something wildly important to my healing journey. The healing journey is something we're going to talk more and more about. I often touch on it vaguely on my social media, but it has been awakening, to say the least. And you'll hear from artists. I'm so excited about some of the artists that are going to be on this in these next couple episodes. The artists in my life have inspired me in ways probably more than anybody. Through my writing, the stories that I've gotten to write, I have talked a lot to and about the arts community, especially in Atlantic City, in the surrounding areas. But I have had the opportunity to talk to and interview quite a few artists, from different backgrounds and different worlds that use different mediums, that are inspired by different things. I've interviewed muralists, I've interviewed international muralists, and local muralists, and graffiti artists, and I've interviewed this guy. He's really awesome. He refurbishes the structures on mini golf courses, something that you wouldn't otherwise think about. I've interviewed artists who are mothers and fathers, and people who are sharing their art worldwide, and people who have never really, I have found out that people are artists behind the scenes. So, and everywhere in between. But the people who are the creatives, the people with the artist brains, who think that way, have inspired me more than anybody in this life. I have learned so much from the artists that I've interviewed. I have shifted my thinking and my points of view on so much because of the ways that artists think. So when I bring an artist on here, it is because their brain, I mean, of course, it is because their art deserves to be celebrated, but it's because their brains and their thought processes are pathways to self-evolution. If you can pick up a little nugget here and a little piece of gold there from a couple of these conversations, I promise you, these things will stick with you forever, because they've stuck with me. And I've heard people speak in ways that I'm like, ooh, what a gift it is to hear you speak right now. What a gift it is to hear the way you think. And it is a gift to exchange thoughts. It is a gift to exchange free thought in such a way that we can all hear each other and seek to understand each other. So you'll hear from the artists, and the business owners, the people that are out here really trying to make magic, for their own lives, and then for the people around them, trying to leave a legacy for their kids, trying to build something to stand on, whether they're restaurant owners or just people creating different types of solutions, retail, whether it's retail or hospitality or services, whatever it is, these people that are just creating opportunities, not just for themselves to win, but to serve others. You're going to hear from people in the nonprofit space, the ones that are making a difference in the community. If you listen to Billy Joe, you'll hear her talk about this is a previous episode. You'll hear her talk about how she's an artist serving young kids through an organization, Atlantic City Youth Services, where she's teaching kids about the value of their art. So you'll hear about different nonprofit organizations. You're going to hear from Glam and the Warrior, an organization that is doing amazing things for people living with cancer. You'll hear from my friends at the Atlantic City Arts Foundation that have been a huge part of my journey over the past couple years, and how I've met so many of these amazing artists. So there's organizations far and wide that I look forward to covering, and then the healers that have impacted my life. You'll hear from my friend Janice, who she has been a huge part of. I need to find a better word for the healing journey, because it's getting a little played out, but the healing journey, for lack of a better word right now. Janice has been a huge part of my healing journey. She is I don't want to call a practitioner. I think she's the appropriate word, a practitioner of something called neo-emotional release. This is a healing modality that has absolutely changed my life. You'll hear from sound healers and Reiki practitioners and different modalities and things that I've explored that have impacted my life and made me a better me. Those are the things that I look forward to bringing to you here on this podcast. So it's all coming. There is so much more. I look forward to talking about the books. I look forward to talking about the poetry and the people and the relationships and just the cool people doing cool shit in this world. That's what this show is about. Yes, at the surface, but below that, it's about who are those people, understanding those people and seeking to really understand one another. So, one of the things, understanding one another is not always love and light. Sometimes it's grief and sorrow and holding space for all the parts of each other. So, in addition to all the exciting, creative conversations I look forward to having here, I also want to talk about the hard things because we need to, because living and being human is often hard. As I said to you, I've experienced double down grief in ways I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. But I've navigated grief in such a way, I'm still navigate grief in such a way. I navigate grief every day that I think it's important to also discuss grief and sadness and despair. Not that this is it's not gonna be full of darkness, but we have darkness, we are light and shadow, we are love and fear, we are everything. We are the yin to the yang, we are yin and yang, we are everything simultaneously. So I think in being fully human and having these full human conversations, it's only right that we talk about the hard things too. So forget everything I said it would look like and just stick around with me. I'm giving myself the grace to let it be what it needs to be, and I hope you enjoy it. Before I go, I would just ask you to like and subscribe and comment and share and, do all those things that we do on the internet to support each other, because this is something that I am doing because I want to. Getting paid for something like this is not necessarily the easiest task in the world, though it is evolving. And I so appreciate those who have invested in listener support and are supporting the journey simply because you believe in me, because you believe in the show. I love you. I appreciate you. It is so received with an open heart. If you would like to support the show, listener support is available to you. So make sure you check that out in the link in the show description. And I will have exclusive content coming. I said it would be sooner than it was. That's not reality. I often bite off more than I can chew, but I am trying not to. So, not overpromising. There is exclusive content coming. There is absolutely some YouTube content coming, if nothing else. So, you will see the guests that you see on the show, that you hear on this show. There will be bonus content on the Coolest People Podcast YouTube. So, look forward to additional interviews from military veterans. That's an important theme that's coming up. I've been doing some work with my friend Jennifer, covering her work with the DAV and female veterans in the United States. So definitely look for more stories of female veterans on YouTube. And then additional behind the scenes content with some of my guests will be available on YouTube. We'll talk about the other stuff later. Let's see, what else? Okay, so before I go, I do have one episode that I recorded prior to taking a break, and that's with my stepmom, Cheryl Bailey, Quickmire. She is someone that has, I didn't realize when I was growing up that she inspired my life because I was a kid and she was just my stepmom. But my stepmom is someone that I didn't realize molded me in many ways. I have lost parents, and I've also been very blessed with step parents. So I want to take a moment to give my living parents the love and shine that they deserve. My mother is my rock. Her and I have our differences, but she is my number one supporter. She always has been. And I love her very much. And so I just wanted to say, hey, Mom. My stepmother, I met her. My dad met her when I was a child. She's been my stepmom since I was, I think, like 9 years old. I don't even know, lost track of time. But she is someone that I didn't realize was molding my life at a very young age as far as business goes. She was the president of the American Business Women's Association when I was a child. She owned a business for as long. She started her business the year I was born. It was a medical transcription business where I actually learned to type. She taught me to type, and look at me now, I'm writing books. I learned to type on a keyboard with you couldn't see the keys. She typed so much that the letters were off. So She taught me how to type. She was my first job. I started making copies for her when I was, 13, helping her out in the office, in her little home office. She taught me how to type medical transcription when I was a young mom, a pregnant mom in college. I did not have a job. Well, I did have a job and I had to quit my job, and I was pregnant. I was in college. That's how life goes. But she taught me how to type medical transcription. So in my daughter's early years, I would sit up with my headphones, typing with my daughter strapped to my chest. And I was very blessed to start my journey of working for myself when my stepmom gave me an opportunity. So she lives with a rare disease called FMD, Fibromuscular Dysplasia. And so I wanted to bring her on the show to celebrate her, celebrate what she's been to me, and also to spread a little awareness about FMD. So be sure to look for the link in the show description. If you want to pause and come back, now would be a great time to do it, because I'm going to let this roll right into my interview with my stepmom, Cheryl. I hope you enjoy, and be sure to do all the internet things, like, comment, share, rate, review, support. It all matters, and I appreciate all of it. So thank you for listening. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for checking out the coolest people in the world. And I will see you next time with a new episode that you are not going to want to miss. Welcome back to the Coolest People in the World podcast. I am your host, Krystle J Bailey, and I am here today, this week, with a super special guest, someone who is very, very close to me, and also one of the coolest people in the world, my stepmom, Cheryl.
Thank you, Krystle, for having me on your show today.
I'm so excited to get into this story from a new point of view. We were talking a little bit about how when you grow up as a child, and Cheryl has been in my life since we paused to figure this out since I was about 7 years old.
That would be right.
When she met my dad, who, as many of you know, is no longer with us. And Cheryl is still very much a part of my life. My father passed about 15 years ago, almost 15 years ago now. And Cheryl's been a huge part of my life since I was 7. And even after his passing, has become even more of my friend and someone that I just love very much. My children's grandmother, if I could talk. And we were just talking about how when you grow up, you have a certain point of view on the adults in your life, and you only understand things from your very limited, your child brain, right? So Cheryl is a million things that we're going to get into, but she also has a super rare disease called FMD, which I will let you say.
Fibromuscular dysplasia.
Fibromuscular dysplasia, which we want to talk about. It's super, super rare. She's like a walking miracle, living miracle. And she taught me so much about life and about business over the years. So I'm very excited to have her on as a guest. And I'm going to stop talking now, because I would like you to introduce yourself a little bit more, about your career path. Tell me a little bit about who you are besides my stepmom.
Well, aside from that, which to me is the most important thing in my life, I am a self-made business owner who literally did not like school, didn't want to be in school, carried straight A's through school, but on graduation decided not to go to college. And I had parents that were very, very strict. They said I had to take some kind of career path. Mm-hmm. So I took a state civil service test, mm-hmm. and found out that I could type.
And so can I, by the way, because she taught me.
So I aced the clerk typist test, and I was assigned to the Vineland State School, which at the time had just built a brand new several $1 million hospital, which back in 1976 was a lot of money. Mm. And I was offered the opportunity to work in the hospital or to be a filing clerk in the vault in administration. Well, the hospital had a brand new building with skylights, and the vault was a closet. Mm-hmm. So I went for the skylights.
Fair.
I became the admissions clerk. And from being the admissions clerk in a hospital, which was a private state-owned hospital for mentally retarded women, mm-hmm. I started learning medical terminology, and the medical transcriptionist was retiring. Mm-hmm. And in order to further your career with the state, you had to go back, take another test. So I went back, took the very next test, which was for clerk transcriptionist, and I aced it. And I came back,
of course.
And I started learning to do medical transcription. And my supervisor told me my first 10 x-rays were the most horrendous x-rays she had ever read in her life. I thought pneumonia was spelled AMMONIA. I was pretty sure that I would never, ever understand the Indian dialects that I was being trained on. But as it happened, it was a gift that I received. No doubt I had a gifted ear.
Yeah.
Because the words literally started coming in my ears and flowing out of my fingertips to the point where I typed 140 words a minute fluently in medical language.
So growing up, you had a business,
Yes,
a medical transcription business that I was fortunate enough to have a front row seat to. It was my first job. I was making copies at one point. I think about the age of my daughter now, who's also helping me.
Yes.
With my job, my business. But growing up, Cheryl owned a business and taught me the tricks of the trade as it relates to typing and business ownership in many ways. I didn't realize, and I talk about this all the time on the show, like you don't realize what you're being prepared for as you're being prepared for it. I didn't set out to be a business owner or a writer or an author, any of the things that I've become, but I know how to type because Cheryl taught me how to type on a keyboard with no letters because you couldn't see the letters. They were all typed off. And she's had acrylic nails for as long as I remember. Clickety clack, they're gone. But that's how I learned to type. So if you've ever seen me type, I type really, really fast, probably 100, maybe about 100 words a minute. Still, I'm not too bad anymore. I definitely don't type properly anymore.
Okay,
I've adapted my own.
All right, a little looking here and there.
Yes. So for 20 some years, 24 years, you had a business out of your home. So prior to a lot of what my generation is doing, this remote work, now that we can do much more remote work and influencer work, and like I have a podcast because I can do it from my home. You were the trailblazer for working at home in many ways and creating a business from home.
Very true. Very true. I was very fortunate in that I had a dear friend who was an IT person, and he instantly hooked me up with, back in 1988, a Commodore Amiga computer, which was ahead of its time. And I was able to point and click and multitask and connect via modem. And I was able to start typing at home for doctors. And my reputation is what brought more doctors in. I never advertised. I was very blessed in that sense that they knew me and they knew my quality work. Mm-hmm. So the doctors kept coming to me, and as I would get too much work, I would hire an employee and hook them up at home. So I started looking for women who wanted to work at home because they had young children that they were raising, parents that they needed to take care of. I even had a gentleman come and work for me who was a medical transcriptionist that didn't want to work out in the field. He wanted to be home.
I love it.
And it grew into a very, very large business, something that kept me in the beginning working 7 days a week.
I remember.
I know you do. As a matter of fact, the reason why you learned to type is because when you and your sisters would come over, I would put each one of you at a separate computer with Mavis Beacon typing tutor.
So we'd be quiet.
So you would be quiet and I could get some work done.
Right. Now I understand that fully. I benefited. But now that I'm a mother and I work at home, I'm like, if y'all don't shut up,
I'll give you something to do.
Right.
And it works.
And what's cool about that is, so we're actually recording today. We are recording on video. I've moved more into the video aspect of the podcast. And with me, I have my daughter, who I was pregnant, she's helping out behind the scenes. And I was pregnant with her when I started really working for you, because I was making copies at 14, but when I got pregnant in college and I needed to figure out what I was going to do with my life, you said, all right, well, you know how to type. We just got to learn how to listen to doctors. And that's the hard part.
Yes, but you picked it up. You had the ear too. And that was you really made me so proud. I have to tell you, to have you be able to step in and do what you saw me doing, and to make money doing it, to make a good income doing it. That was the whole reason why I wanted the business to take off. Once I knew I was going to be at home and typing at home, it was time for me to share that with other women because it was lucrative. Yeah. It was something you could do, and you could feed your family. You know? It was a good job. And from there, my dad recommended I join a service organization, and the service organizations are really what led me out into the world.
And you were successful for 24 years with this at-home business, which I just think is amazing for the time and what we're all trying to do now, like I said. And you've taught me so much. And through that, you've also taught me about business ownership. And so something that is, I think, one of the coolest things about Cheryl is that she was the president for many years of the American Business Women's Association, ABWA. So talk to me a little bit about that experience.
So ABWA is a wonderful organization for women, and they are still out there nationally. You have to think back that in 1949, one gentleman and 3 women sat around a table and came up with this organization that would take women out of the kitchen, out from behind the ironing board, and put them out into the workforce, give them a better education so that they could further their careers.
Right.
And that's what ABWA does. They raise money for scholarships for young women, and they have successfully been doing this since 1949. I was the past president 4 times, I think. I've lost track. I actually helped found a new chapter, which was the New Jersey, the WAVE chapter for the Jersey Shore. Unfortunately, that one didn't last as long.
Okay.
Atlanta County has lost some of its members. Most of them were older, and it was hard to bring in younger, but nationally, this organization is thriving.
Yeah, now I'm like curious because all these little touch points.
Yeah, they're excellent. And in the beginning, when I was there, it was good for me because we could further our education and get college credits as we went along.
Oh, that's really
by
cool.
Attending the conferences and going to the seminars.
And
and I was going to say, and the one thing I did get to do, which was very exciting, and your dad got to help me with this, it was the best. We put our wedding off by 1 year because of it.
Oh, wow.
But I was the chairman for a 13-state conference, which was our District 6,
Oh, wow.
District 4 in New Jersey. And it was at the Sheraton. And it was awesome. 13 states attended a 3-day conference.
And you ran the whole show?
I ran the whole show.
I love that. So that had to be really meaningful for you you've touched my life as far as, I mean, many things, but as far as business and showing me what's possible. What does it feel like to be able to create a place like that where women can come, an opportunity like that where women can come and you are a success and the people you are around you are a success, and then they're getting to see like this is actually possible in the time that you were doing it?
Well, it made me feel good in the sense that I was a part of it, but it makes me feel better now when I look at you or women like you that are reaping the opportunities, the benefits of the opportunities that we provided.
I love that. I love the full circle of it all. Like, and even though we've talked about it so many times, doing it now, actually recording it and having the conversation that I know is going to be on the podcast and like go down in history, and like my daughter will listen to it. I mean, she is listening to it, but you know, other generations that will follow will get to hear this conversation. And I told Eliana, I said, you know, I'm kind of a trailblazer in my own right.
You are. You truly are.
You only get to see it in retrospect.
That's what makes me so proud.
Oh, thank you. You only get to see it in retrospect, though. You don't know when it's happening.
Well, it's like I don't realize until you start telling me how impressed you are about the things I've done in my life. And I stop and I look at myself at 67 and 99% retired at this point in my life and happy to be there.
Yeah.
And I stop and I look back and I'm like, it was only a few years ago I was still blazing the trails.
Right. And now, I love it. I love the full circle of life.
I do too.
So I want to talk about a couple of things as far as you and your journey and the most meaningful parts of it all for you, besides me and my sisters, because
That's a hard part.
You are phenomenal in your own right. But I want to talk about FMD. So you live with a rare disease, fibromuscular. I get it wrong every time.
You're getting close.
Fibromuscular dysplasia. Oh, I did get it right. See,
yes.
I doubted myself. Fibromuscular dysplasia. It's FMD in my head. Tell the audience what FMD is.
FMD is an abnormal growth in the wall of an artery. It grows in the wall. So if you picture a straw and a flex straw, it's the business end of the flex straw. Okay. You've got all these little coils going around your artery. So you have stenosis and dilation, stenosis getting tighter, dilation getting wider. So your arteries end up looking like a string of beads.
Okay.
A lot of our literature will say, ask me about my string of beads. We're susceptible to stroke. Of course, we're a stroke risk. You're getting less oxygen to the organs that these arteries supply the blood to.
Okay.
In my case, I have 11 arteries that are diseased.
Wow.
My carotids and my vertebrals, they supply my brain.
Mm-hmm.
They're 89% stenosed. That's very, very close. So I'm on blood thinners.
Okay.
Blood thinners keep the blood going. So of course I need blood to my brain to remember what I'm supposed to say to you next. We have, I have it in my celiac, which leads down to your gastrointestinal tract.
Mm-hmm.
It's below your aorta, and your mesenteric, I have it in there. They lead to the intestines.
Mm-hmm.
My external iliacs lead to my femoral arteries. I have it in there. Both of my renal arteries are diseased. I have it in there. My right kidney is atrophied, which means it's very small compared to my left.
Wow.
All that said, I probably should have really bad renal functions. I should have hypertension.
Mm-hmm.
I should have maybe had a stroke. Who knows? I've had a mini stroke. I had a TIA. You will remember when I was in the hospital. Yep. I had an aneurysm coiled. That was in 2013. Other than that, and my migraines are practically gone.
Wow.
I don't suffer symptoms.
Wow.
My blood pressure is normal, thank God. I'm sure I'm a stroke risk, but I run faster, I jump higher, I exercise. I can't impact. When I say I jump higher, it's just a term.
Yeah.
It's an expression.
Right.
But I'm not allowed to do impact sports.
Right.
But I do. I walk, I power walk.
Mm-hmm. And you look younger than ever. Every time I see you, I feel like you're getting younger. Your hair gets more fashionable. And
thank you.
And so let's go back to when you found out about FMD. So how did you find out and when did you find out?
In 2004, I had a urinary tract infection. Being in the medical field, you don't always pay attention to yourself and go for regular physicals. Mm-hmm. So when I went to my doctor, the nurse practitioner saw me that day, and she said, "You hadn't had a physical in 2 years, Cheryl." She's like, "I want to do some listening." So she put the stethoscope up here, and she's like, and she kept going back and forth. So finally she told me I had bruits. Bruits are a swishing noise in your carotid artery. You should be hearing a bump, 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 instead of a shh, shh, like that. So I thought, okay, years of smoking and cream cheese and chocolate. I've got plaque in my arteries too soon. I was in my 40s. So I went for a test. It was called a carotid duplex. The doctor did the test, and then he went on vacation.
Oh, goodness.
He happened to be my client, so I got my hands on the results. I read the results, and it said that I probably had fibromuscular dysplasia. I had never heard of it in my life. So for 3 days, I researched it on the computer, and every day I got closer to tears. And by the third day, I had tears pouring down my face. People were stroking out. People were dying I was reading about.
Now, was it relatively newly discovered though? Like, how long had they known about it?
Actually, back in the 1930s, they discovered it at autopsy.
Oh, wow.
But
okay.
Back in the day, that is when it was discovered.
Okay.
They didn't start discovering it in living
people
until later.
Okay.
But after I started researching it and trying to figure things out on my own, it's probably one of the main diseases of my job, of my career. Daddy walked in one day and turned off the computer.
So that's enough.
And said, "That's it. Until your doctor comes back from vacation, I don't want you even thinking about this anymore." So I did. I put it aside. He came back. They told me what he thought I had. I had to go in for more testing. I had to go in the hospital and have an arteriogram where they look at all of your arteries. They pump dye into you. You're awake for it. Now you're not. Now you're asleep. But back then you were awake for it. It was brutally painful when they shot the dye into your brain.
Oh, wow.
But it showed the FMD, and it was textbook.
Wow. After everything you just researched.
Yep, it was textbook. The pictures were absolutely everything I had seen. And according to the doctors, he thought I was going to have my kidney removed.
Oh, wow.
They really didn't know enough about it. And I got very, very scared. So I started researching. And I came upon an organization that raises awareness, FMDSA, which is the Fibromuscular Dysplasia Society of America. They were founded in 2003, the year before I was diagnosed.
Wow. Prepared.
a young couple's daughter had it, and they took off running with this organization. They brought on board a young nurse named Pam Mace.
Mm-hmm.
Pam became their spokesperson, and as of today, she is their executive director.
Oh, wow. And so this is a national or international organization?
It's a national organization, and we have an international patient registry now. And we also have 19 designated FMD clinics throughout the United States.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So though we're listed with NORD, which is the National Organization for Rare Diseases, as a rare disease, we now say that we are highly underdiagnosed.
So it's underdiagnosed. It's not that it's becoming more and more.
It's not becoming more and more known. There is no known cause, no known cure for it. There is a lot of research being done. The research has started to come close to one, they say, genome in common.
Okay.
So that said, all that we've been doing in FMDSA to raise awareness is paying off. In that we were able to get this research off the ground.
Okay. So in the awareness aspect of things, like if someone's listening, what would you say, would you say to be on the lookout for something, or if you think something?
Unexplained hypertension, biggest factor.
Okay.
Second one would be unexplained migraines. Let the doctors do a thorough workup for either thing. But say to them, especially if you're a female, men as well, children too. And unexplained hypertension in children is where they really started finding it in the beginning.
So do a lot of children live with this disease?
Believe it or not, I think they sort of grow out of it.
Okay.
I'm not going to say they cure because there's no proof of that. But the children that I know that have had it are beyond puberty now and grow. It seems like they're growing better. I don't know. But we don't know how long I had it.
Right.
We only know we found it in 2004. We know that mine started in the carotid arteries because they tell me that.
Right.
It supposedly it starts in the renal arteries all the time.
Interesting. So what goes into living with FMD?
So you want to be aware, of course, of your body. You always want to be your own advocate.
Right.
Treatment for FMD varies. It depends. If you have hypertension, they're going to weigh out whether you need to be on an antihypertensive. In my case, I need to be on an antiplatelet or blood thinner. So those are the two things that are the most important in the way of treatment. But staying current, go to your PCP. Everybody should have an annual physical. Yeah. And like I said, I was guilty of not doing that.
So you talk a lot about the disease doesn't have you. And I think that translates for so many people who live with chronic illness or any type of disease or living situation that's maybe not ideal, is you don't let it consume your life. Can you talk to us about that?
I have FMD. It doesn't own me.
Yeah.
I won't let it own me. In the beginning, I did. In the beginning, I wore my awareness bracelet everywhere I went. I'd be showing everybody. I'd want them to know what was wrong with me. And they'd all, and as the years went on and people would say, well, you look fine. I started realizing I am fine.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm better than fine now.
Right.
Sure. You know what? Anybody's expiration date could come up at any time. That's how I look at it.
We know that all too well.
Don't we? So I'm not going to sit around and wait for it.
Right. I love that. So legacy. We talk about legacy on this show a lot. And this individual show is legacy in real time. We're looking at it. But me aside, a generation of women, you've done so many things. You've created a successful business. You've sold a successful business. You've moved on to the different stages of life. You started over more times than
I want to remember.
But this is a conversation we had recently. It gives me the reminder that I can look at you doing well and happy and healthy and thriving at 60 something. You don't have to always say your age.
I'm proud of my age.
Okay.
I truly am. My mom was.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, she always was.
My mother loved saying, I'm 87 and I don't dye my hair.
Yeah, and she went to the gym.
God bless her.
I love that. I lost this train of thought. My question. Legacy. So what would you tell
maybe like other women of my generation or even younger, your granddaughter's generation, as far as like dreaming big and following your dreams or starting businesses? What would be your advice?
Be true to yourself.
Yeah.
Be true to yourself, because if you're not, don't try to follow in somebody else's footsteps.
Yeah.
You need to make your own path. I made my own path and didn't even know I was making it.
I understand that.
That's my, be true to yourself. And, with me, be true to your faith.
Yeah, absolutely. So do you feel like the coolest person in the world?
Right now, when you tell me I am.
I think it's pretty cool that you are all that you are. And I think it's really cool that I'm starting to notice in retrospect the little seeds that you've planted for me over the years that I didn't even realize were being planted.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You've made me very proud, you and your sisters, but I thank Daddy every day for giving me you girls. Yeah. I thank Daddy and your moms.
Yes.
Both.
Yeah, absolutely. And I always say I hit the step-parent jackpot. Like, I have not had a traditional life in any sense of the word. And, we can continue the conversation a little bit with this is a great conversation about step-parents, because I think that's a topic that a lot of people don't know how to navigate, especially people of my generation now that are becoming like, they were married, they're divorced, they have teenage kids, they have younger kids. What advice would you give, or what, maybe share your experience as far as going into, because you are an amazing stepmom, and I've had two amazing stepfathers and an amazing stepmom, and like, my life was non-traditional. My parents didn't live together. They divorced when I was young, and I have the trauma and baloney that goes with that, but I also got this gift of this second mom and second dads that have gotten to love me. And so what would be your insight on any of that?
Well, I'm going to back it up just a step and say, for a woman who was told at 28 that she would never be able to have children, and basically convinced herself that her life would consist of no kids, no pets, no mess. That was my mantra when I met your dad.
You got 3 kids.
And he told me he had 3 daughters. And I was like, okay, I got to back that one up a little bit. Daddy always told me the reason you girls accepted me the way you did was because I wasn't pushy. So my advice would be to listen. For any new step parent, listen to the children. Always listen to them, and take into consideration the fact that they didn't ask to be put where they are.
Yeah. That's
fair.
That's pretty fair. And you've done a pretty good job at that. And we're still here. And
yes, we are.
All these years later, sitting on a couch doing an interview about your life and my life and the future generations.
The future generation.
So I want to get back to FMD and FMDSA a little bit. So FMDSA is the organization that started the year before your diagnosis that helped you, but then you also became very active in that organization.
Yes,
so
I did.
Tell me about your experience with that.
So I started out as a volunteer, and then they asked if I would be the secretary. And because of being a medical transcriptionist, whenever I would record minutes in a meeting, I would literally record them with a recorder and transcribe them word for word. So everybody loved me. So I was secretary for many years because I never missed a word.
Right.
But I learned so much in that organization by being the secretary that I climbed up the ladder to VP. And next thing you know, I was president for a year. And right around the time it was after Daddy passed, I became president. Right about the time I sold my business, I was almost going to go and work for them. But then they made some changes in their leadership and decided they really couldn't afford paid employees just yet.
Right.
So I sold my business and took different paths.
Right.
But I stayed on the organization as the newsletter editor, up until this day.
Oh, you still do that?
I still do.
Oh, nice. So you're president for the year. So president of ABWA, president of FMDSA.
And president of the WAVE chapter.
And president of the WAVE chapter. Maybe one of us will be president of the United States one day. That'll be the
awesome.
legacy. That's not for me. That might be for the next generation of women. So what was your experience like, or did your experience with ABWA kind of prepare you in any way for being president of FMDSA?
Yes, it did. As a matter of fact, it was a lot of the deciding factor of FMDSA to ask me to move up the ladder because they knew of all I did with ABWA.
Right.
They kept in, contact with everything. They watch what you do. And
Right.
Pam was very much a big part of my life. I mentioned our executive director. Her and I grew very close over the years.
So you met her through your diagnosis?
Yes, I did. I met her on a Yahoo chat group for FMD. And I was scared to death because it was back in the beginning of people meeting on the internet. And she made plans. She was living in Cape May at the time. She made plans for Daddy and I to meet her and her fiance on their boat down in Cape May. And the whole time I kept thinking, oh, what if they're not real people?
Right.
It was back in the beginning when people were leery to meet people on the internet.
And now she's one of your best
Closest
friends. Yes.
friends. She came up for Daddy's benefit, everything.
And I'm glad she came up because I almost forgot to mention this. So you have a cool story. This is one of the fun little pieces that fits the coolest people in the world. Like Pam's story and this FMD that Cheryl lives with. You tell us.
There was a television show called Mystery Diagnosis, and one of the very first episodes of Mystery Diagnosis is on FMD, and it's Pam's story.
Can we still watch that somewhere? Because I do remember that show.
Yes, you can look it up. You can Google Mystery Diagnosis and look it up, and you can get the different episodes.
I love it.
Look for the one with fibromuscular dysplasia.
Go learn more about FMD and Pam's story.
And Pam's story and how she dissected. A dissection is when the artery actually does tear.
Okay.
And you start to bleed out.
So my living miracle, my stepmother, my business inspiration in so many ways. Thank you for being on the coolest people in the world.
Thank you for having me.
Is there any parting words you want to share with the audience or anything?
No, just thank you for having me. And again, just remember what I said. Be true to yourself.
Yes, absolutely. And you live that every day and inspire me to keep living it. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Be sure to like, comment, rate, share, tell a friend, send a messenger pigeon, get the word out that the Coolest People in the World podcast exists. Cheryl is my guest this week. Last week was an actor. Next week, you don't know who it's going to be. So be sure to listen in every Thursday to see who I find to be the coolest people in the world.
You've been listening to the Coolest People in the World podcast with Krystle J Bailey. Visit us online today at thecoolestpeoplepodcast.com.